Why was she always the first one there? Every morning before the California sun burned off the coastal fog, before the other instructors arrived with their coffee and their complaints about traffic, she was already in the training compound, checking equipment, testing rope tension, verifying safety protocols. The quiet hours belonged to her, the stillness before chaos, the breath before the storm. Senior Chief Petty Officer Maya Cross didn't need the extra time. 15 years in naval special warfare had taught her to prepare for anything in half the time most people needed. But she showed up early anyway, because preparation wasn't just about competence. It was about respect, for the job, for the trainees, for the legacy she carried on her shoulders every single day. She stood alone in the obstacle course that morning, her 54 frame dwarfed by the massive structures around her. The cargo net tower loomed 30 feet above her, the wall climb, the rope traverse, the tire run. Each obstacle had broken men twice her size. Each one had stories written in sweat and blood and tears. She'd conquered them all years ago, but watching new classes struggle through them never got old, because struggle meant growth. And growth meant they might actually survive what came after graduation. The fog was thick that morning, heavy, the kind that muffled sound and played tricks on your mind. She liked it, reminded her of operations in the Hindu Kush, of villages hidden in mist, of movements made in silence because your life depended on it. She breathed it in. Let the moisture coat her lungs. Let the memories surface just enough to keep her sharp, then push them back down where they belonged. Her radio crackled. "Senior Chief, this is Gate 4. We've got your new class arriving. Bud S-352, 23 candidates." Maya keyed her mic. "Copy that, send them to the grinder. I'll be there in 5. 23 young men who thought they knew what hard meant, who'd survived Hell Week and thought the worst was behind them, who wore their new tridents like armor and their arrogance like a second skin. She'd seen hundreds just like them. Most of them learned, grew, became the operators the teams needed. But there were always a few. The ones who confused surviving training with mastering war. The ones who thought the trident made them invincible. The ones who needed to be humbled before they got themselves or their teammates killed. She didn't know it yet, but Sergeant First Class Derek Hammond was exactly that kind of problem. The grinder was a massive concrete pad where dreams went to die or determination was forged into something unbreakable, depending on the day, depending on the trainee. Maya stood at the edge of it watching the new class file in. Fresh uniforms, polished boots, eyes full of confidence and just a hint of fear. Good. Fear kept you alive. Overconfidence got you killed. "Gentlemen," she said, her voice cutting through the morning air like a blade. "Welcome to Advanced Special Operations Training. You've earned your tridents. Congratulations. But earning them and being worthy of them are two very different things." She walked slowly in front of the formation, taking her time, letting them see her, really see her, the small woman in the instructor uniform, the combat ribbons on her chest, the look in her eyes that said she'd seen things they couldn't imagine and survived things that would have broken them. She could feel their confusion, their doubt. A few exchanged glances. One smirked, that one, front row second from the left, built like a linebacker, arms crossed, jaw set, the kind of posture that screamed, "I don't have anything to learn from you." Derek Hammond. She'd read his file that morning, top of his class in Hell Week. Excellent marksman, strong swimmer, leadership potential noted by multiple instructors, but also noted struggles with authority, particularly female authority. Incident reports from 2 separate altercations with female support staff, dismissed as personality conflicts by his command. Maya had seen that pattern before. The talented ones who thought their skills gave them permission to be disrespectful. The ones who could do 100 pull-ups but couldn't do the harder work of controlling their ego. "This course will test you in ways Bud S. didn't," Maya continued. "Not just physically, mentally, emotionally, morally. You'll learn advanced tactics, close quarters combat, hostage rescue, high-value target extraction. But more importantly, you'll learn judgment, discipline, the difference between a warrior and a weapon. She stopped directly in front of Hammond, looked up at him. He was at least 6'2", maybe 220 pounds of muscle. She was barely 5'4" and 130 pounds soaking wet. The size difference was almost comical, but she held his gaze without blinking, without flinching, without giving him an inch. "Some of you are wondering if a woman can teach you anything about combat," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "That's fair. You've never seen me operate. You don't know my record. You don't know what I've done or where I've been. All you see is size, gender, surface." She took a step back, addressed the entire formation again. "By the end of this course, you'll know, and what you learn might surprise you." The first week was standard protocol, classroom work, weapons familiarization, tactical theory. Maya taught most of the sessions herself, with guest instructors rotating through for specialized topics. She watched Hammond carefully. He was technically proficient, sharp, quick to grasp complex concepts, but his attitude hadn't changed. Every time she corrected his form or challenged his assumptions, she saw the resistance in his eyes. The silent argument he was having with himself about whether he had to listen to her. His buddies weren't helping. Two other guys from his Bud.S class, Brett Lawson and Marcus Pierce, they formed a tight trio, always sitting together, always whispering, always looking at Maya like she was an obstacle to get around rather than an instructor to learn from. On Friday, they had their first practical exercise, close quarters combat, hand-to-hand, the kind of fighting that happened when everything else failed, when your weapon jammed, when you were out of ammunition, when it was just you and the enemy and one of you wasn't walking away. Maya stood in the center of the training mat. "Today we're going to work on defensive tactics against larger opponents. In the field, you won't always face someone your own size. You need to know how to use leverage, angles, momentum, not just strength." Hammond raised his hand. "Senior Chief, with all due respect, isn't size a pretty big advantage? I mean, in a real fight, wouldn't strength matter more than technique?" "Depends on the technique," Maya said calmly, "and depends on whether you're smart enough to use it." "But realistically," Hammond pressed, "if a 220-pound man fights a 130-pound woman, the man wins. Right? That's just physics." The room went quiet. Everyone knew what he was really asking. Everyone could feel the challenge in his voice. Maya smiled, not a friendly smile, the kind of smile that made experienced operators nervous. "You volunteering to demonstrate, Hammond?" He stood up, confident, ready. "Yes, Senior Chief, I think it would be educational." "I think you're right," Maya said. "Come on down." Hammond walked to the mat, stretched his shoulders, cracked his knuckles, playing to his audience. His buddies grinned from the sidelines. This was going to be good. Their boy Hammond was about to make a point. Show everyone that this whole female instructor thing was political correctness gone too far. Maya stood relaxed, hands at her sides, weight balanced. She looked impossibly small next to him, fragile even, like a strong wind could knock her over. "Rules are simple," she said. "Try to take me down, use any technique you want. If you can pin me for 3 seconds, you win." "And if you take me down?" Hammond asked. "Then you learn something." He lunged. Fast, aggressive, using his size and strength exactly the way Maya knew he would. He reached for her shoulders, trying to grab and throw her, but she wasn't there anymore. She'd shifted left, just 6 inches, just enough. His momentum carried him forward, off balance, and in that split second Maya moved. Her hand struck his elbow, precise, controlled, redirecting his force. His arm hyperextended. Pain shot through his shoulder. He stumbled, tried to recover, but she was already moving again, behind him now. Her foot hooked his ankle. Her hand pressed the small of his back. And suddenly Derek Hammond, 220 pounds of muscle and arrogance, was face down on the mat with a 130-pound woman's knee on his spine and her hand controlling his neck. 3 seconds. She led him up. He stood slowly, face red, breathing hard, not from exertion, from humiliation. "Again," he said. "Hammond. Again, please, Senior Chief." Maya nodded, "Okay." He came at her differently this time, more cautious, trying to use technique instead of just power. Better, smarter, but still predictable, still telegraphing his movements, still fighting like someone who'd learned combatives in a gym instead of in places where losing meant dying. She let him get closer this time, let him think he had a chance. Then she dropped under his guard, swept his legs, rolled him, and once again he was on the mat, controlled, helpless, beaten. She stood up, offered him a hand. He didn't take it. The silence in the room was deafening. 22 other trainees watching, processing, recalculating everything they thought they knew. "Strength matters," Maya said quietly. "But so does timing, so does leverage, so does experience. The enemy doesn't care about your ego or your Bud S scores. They care about killing you. And if you think being big and strong is enough, you'll die surprised." Hammond got to his feet on his own, wouldn't meet her eyes, wouldn't acknowledge what had just happened. He walked back to his spot, sat down, stared at the floor. Brett Lawson leaned over, whispered something. Hammond's jaw clenched. Maya saw it, the anger, the resentment, the wounded pride festering into something darker. She'd seen this before, too. The ones who couldn't accept being beaten by a woman, the ones who took it personally, who let it poison them. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. What makes a man dangerous isn't always his skill with weapons. Sometimes it's his inability to accept being wrong, his refusal to learn, his ego taking up so much space in his head that there's no room left for wisdom. Maya had learned that lesson the hard way. In dusty villages half a world away. In firefights where the biggest threat wasn't always the enemy across the street. Sometimes it was the teammate beside you who thought he knew better, who wouldn't listen, who got people killed because he couldn't admit he didn't have all the answers. Derek Hammond was 3 weeks into advanced special operations training, and he was getting worse, not better. Not in his technical skills. Those were still sharp. He could field strip a weapon in the dark, navigate by stars, calculate windage and elevation for a 1,000-yard shot, but his attitude had curdled into something toxic, and it was spreading. Maya watched him during morning PT. While the rest of the class pushed through their exercises with grim determination, Hammond and his 2 buddies, Lawson and Pierce, went through the motions with barely concealed contempt, mocking the exercises, making jokes about diversity training and sensitivity seminars, just loud enough for her to hear but quiet enough to claim plausible deniability if confronted. Master Chief Raymond Torres noticed it too. At 58, with 35 years in the teams and a chest full of ribbons that told stories he'd never talk about, Torres had seen every kind of operator. The heroes, the cowards, the quiet professionals, and the ones who poisoned the well. He pulled Maya aside after PT one morning. "You seeing what I'm seeing with Hammond?" "Hard to miss," Maya said. "Want me to handle it?" "No, I've got it." Torres studied her face. "Maya, I know you can handle yourself. That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking if you want backup. Because that kid's not just disrespectful, he's resentful. And resentment in a man that size with that kind of training can turn into something real bad real quick." "I know." "Do you?" Torres' voice was gentle but firm. "Because I've been doing this a long time. And I've seen what happens when someone decides their ego is worth more than their integrity. I don't want you getting hurt because you're trying to prove you don't need help." Maya met his eyes. "I'm not trying to prove anything, Master Chief. I'm trying to teach. And part of teaching is letting people fail. Hammond's going to fail, spectacularly. And when he does, he'll either learn from it or wash out. Either way, the teams are better off." Torres nodded slowly. "Just promise me you'll be careful. That boy's got something mean in him." "I know," Maya said again. "I've dealt with mean before." She had, in places Torres knew about and places he didn't. in situations where mean wasn't just an attitude problem, where mean came with guns and explosives and a willingness to kill anyone who got in the way. Compared to that, Derek Hammond was just a kid with a bruised ego and a loud mouth. But Torres was right about one thing. Resentment could turn into something worse. The breaking point came during tactical decision-making exercises. The class was split into four-man teams. Each team received a scenario: hostage rescue, high-value target extraction, bomb threat. They had to plan the mission, identify risks, allocate resources, present their solution to Maya and the other instructors. Hammond's team drew hostage rescue. American journalist held by insurgents in a compound in Yemen. Limited intelligence, tight timeline, high risk of civilian casualties. They had 2 hours to plan. Maya circulated between teams, observing, listening, offering guidance when asked but mostly letting them work through the problems themselves. That was the point. Not to give them answers, but to teach them how to find answers under pressure. She stopped at Hammond's team. They were arguing. "I'm telling you, we go in heavy," Hammond was saying. "Four-man assault team, suppressed weapons, fast and violent, in and out before they know what hit them." "What about collateral damage?" asked Davis, one of his teammates. Younger, quieter, the kind of guy who thought before he spoke. "What about it?" Hammond shot back. "Our priority is the hostage. We get her out. Whatever else happens, happens." Senior Chief Cross said we need to minimize civilian casualties, Davis pressed. "That's part of the mission parameters." Hammond's jaw tightened. "Yeah, well, Senior Chief Cross hasn't been in a real hostage situation. I guarantee you, when bullets start flying, you're not thinking about civilian casualties. You're thinking about completing the mission and getting your team home alive." Maya didn't say anything, just listened. "But we have alternatives," Davis continued. "We could do a surveillance phase first, map the compound, identify civilian patterns, wait for a window when—" "We don't have time for that," Hammond interrupted. "The timeline is tight. We plan fast, execute fast, extract fast. That's how you survive." "That's how you get innocent people killed," Davis said quietly. Hammond stood up, all 220 pounds of him, looming over Davis like a thundercloud. "You questioning my judgment?" "I'm questioning the plan," Davis said, standing his ground. "Good for him. The plan is sound, and I'm the team leader. So unless you want to explain to Senior Chief Cross why you undermined your leadership, I suggest you get on board." Maya stepped in. "Hammond, a word." He followed her to the corner of the room, away from the others, but not far enough that they couldn't hear if they tried. "You're the team leader," Maya said. "That means you're responsible for the outcome, but it also means you're responsible for listening to your team." Davis raised valid concerns. "How are you addressing them?" "I'm addressing them by making a command decision," Hammond said. "That's what leaders do. They decide. Leaders also adapt. Leaders consider input. Leaders don't confuse confidence with certainty." Hammond's eyes narrowed. "Is that what this is about? You think I'm not confident enough?" "I think you're too confident. There's a difference between being decisive and being reckless. And right now, your plan is reckless. With all due respect, Senior Chief, you don't know that. You're not running the mission. We are." Maya kept her voice level, calm. "You're right. I'm not running it, but I've run dozens like it. Real missions, real hostages, real consequences. And I'm telling you, going in fast and heavy without proper reconnaissance is how you turn a rescue into a massacre." "In your experience," Hammond said, and there it was, the edge in his voice, the challenge. "Yes, in my experience." "Which missions would those be?" He crossed his arms. "Because I've read the instructor bios, and yours doesn't list any combat deployments, no team assignments, just classified operations. Which could mean anything, could mean nothing." The room had gone completely silent now, everyone listening, everyone waiting to see how this played out. Maya's voice didn't change. "My record is classified for a reason, Hammond, and you don't have the clearance to know why. What you do have is an opportunity to learn from someone who's been where you're going. You can take that opportunity, or you can keep assuming you know better. Your choice." Hammond smiled, not a real smile, the kind that's all teeth and no warmth. "I think I'll trust my own judgment, Senior Chief. Thanks anyway." He walked back to his team, ignored Davis's questioning look, kept working on the plan, the reckless one, the one that would get people killed. After the presentations, Maya pulled Tors aside again. "Hammond's team is going to fail their scenario tomorrow," she said, "spectacularly. I know, I watched the whole thing. I'm going to make it realistic, full scenario, role players, simunitions, the works. He wants to learn the hard way, fine, but I'm not going to let him forget it." Tors nodded. "You want me to run the opposition force? Please make it hard, make it real, make it hurt." "You got it." The next morning they ran the scenarios, one at a time, full immersion. The teams that had listened, that had planned carefully, that had considered contingencies, they succeeded. Not perfectly, but well enough. They rescued their hostages, minimized casualties, completed their objectives. Then it was Hammond's turn. The compound was a mock-up on the base. Concrete buildings, multiple rooms, role players acting as insurgents and civilians. The hostage, a female instructor playing the part, was bound and blindfolded in a back room. Hammond's team stacked up at the entrance, weapons ready, game faces on. "Execute," Maya said into her radio. They went in exactly as Hammond had planned. Fast, heavy, aggressive, doors blown, flashbangs deployed, shouting, movement, controlled chaos. It fell apart in 30 seconds. Tor's opposition force was ready. They'd anticipated the assault, positioned themselves strategically. When Hammond's team breached, they were caught in a crossfire. Davis took 3 simunition rounds to the chest. Pierce took 2 to the head. Hammond and Lawson made it to the hostage room but found it empty. The role players had moved her during the commotion. By the time they realized their mistake, Tor's team had flanked them, surrounded them, and in the final count the mission was a catastrophic failure. 2 team members dead, hostage not recovered, 3 civilians killed in the crossfire. Complete disaster. The debrief was brutal. Maya didn't hold back. She walked them through every decision, every mistake, every consequence. She showed them surveillance footage of the exercise, made them watch themselves fail in real time. "This is what arrogance looks like," she said. "This is what happens when you confuse confidence with competence, when you ignore input from your team, when you prioritize speed over planning." Hammond sat stone-faced, arms crossed, jaw clenched so tight it looked like it might crack. "You had good intelligence available," Maya continued. "You had teammates with valid concerns. You had time to plan properly. But you chose to ignore all of it because you thought you knew better. And because of that, in a real scenario, you'd have gotten your team killed. You'd have gotten the hostage killed. And you'd have created an international incident that would have destroyed the credibility of the entire program." She paused, let it sink in. "This is your reality check, Hammond. You're talented. You're physically capable. But talent without judgment is just wasted potential. And right now, you're wasting yours." After the debrief, Hammond stormed out. Lawson and Pierce followed. Maya could hear them in the hallway, Hammond's voice tight with fury. "She set us up. The whole thing was rigged." "I don't think," Davis started. "I don't care what you think," Hammond snapped. "She wanted me to fail, wanted to humiliate me in front of everyone, prove some point about women being just as good as men." "Maybe she was trying to teach us something," Davis said quietly. Hammond spun on him. "The only thing she taught me is that she's got an agenda, and I'm done playing along." Maya heard every word, and she knew. This wasn't going to end with a failed exercise and a bruised ego. Hammond wasn't the type to learn and move on. He was the type to hold grudges, to stew, to wait for his moment. And when that moment came, she'd need to be ready. Because some lessons couldn't be taught in a classroom or on a training mat. Some lessons had to be learned the hard way, with consequences, with pain, with the kind of reality check that either broke you or remade you. Derek Hammond was about to get his. Have you ever watched someone self-destruct in slow motion? It's not dramatic, not like the movies where everything explodes at once. It's gradual, incremental, little choices compounding into bigger problems until the weight of it all becomes too much to carry. Maya had seen it before. Good operators who let one bad day turn into a bad week into a bad month, until they were so far gone that there was no coming back. Derek Hammond was on that path, and he was picking up speed. Week 5 of Advanced Special Operations Training. The class was down to 19 candidates. 4 had washed out. Injuries, stress fractures, 1 voluntary withdrawal. The ones who remained were harder, tougher, more focused, except for Hammond and his crew. They were harder too, but in the wrong way. Hardened against instruction, against feedback, against anything that didn't confirm what they already believed. Maya knew the pattern. She'd seen it in combat zones. The soldiers who stopped listening, who thought they knew better than their NCOs, who took unnecessary risks because they'd rather be right than be alive. Most of them learned eventually, usually after a close call scared them straight, but some never did. Some just kept pushing until they pushed too far. Hammond was pushing. It started small, showing up 30 seconds late to formations, just enough to be noticed but not enough to be officially disciplined, making comments under his breath during lectures, nothing directly insubordinate but enough to create an atmosphere, a vibe, an unspoken challenge that infected the other trainees. Some people lead by example, he'd said to Lawson and Pierce after one particularly tough navigation exercise, loud enough for Maya to hear. And some people lead by pointing to their rank and hoping nobody asks what they actually did to earn it. Maya didn't respond, didn't acknowledge it. That was the trap. React too strongly and you proved his point, gave him ammunition, made it about ego instead of professionalism. So she stayed quiet, stayed focused, kept teaching, kept pushing the class toward excellence. But Torres was getting worried. "He's testing you," the Master Chief said during a private conversation in Maya's office, "seeing how far he can push before you break." "I'm not going to break." "I know that, you know that, but does he?" Maya leaned back in her chair. "What do you want me to do, Master Chief? Write him up for attitude? That's not going to change anything. It's just going to make him play the victim. See, she's out to get me because I called her out." "So what's your play?" "Wait." "Wait for what?" "Wait for him to make a real mistake. Not a petty one, a real one. The kind that can't be explained away or blamed on someone else, and then deal with it." Torres shook his head. "You're giving him a lot of rope." "I am, because when he hangs himself with it, nobody can say I didn't give him every chance." The real mistake came during live-fire exercises. The class was practicing room-clearing tactics, working in pairs, moving through a kill house with simulated enemies and hostages. The goal was speed, accuracy, and judgment, knowing when to shoot and when to hold fire, the difference between neutralizing a threat and killing an innocent. Maya was in the observation tower, watching through ballistic glass as the teams rotated through. Most of them did well. A few hesitations, a few mistakes, but nothing catastrophic. They were learning, improving, finding their rhythm. Then Hammond and Lawson entered the course. They moved fast, too fast, aggressive, like they were trying to set a record instead of execute the drill properly. They cleared the first room. Second room, third, targets down, good shots, clean, but then they hit the fourth room. 2 role players, one armed, one unarmed. The unarmed one was positioned between Hammond and the armed threat, deliberately, to test judgment, to see if they'd take the shot or hold fire and reposition. Hammond didn't hesitate. He fired. The simulated round hit the unarmed role player center mass. Kill shot. The armed threat returned fire, hit Lawson in the shoulder. Hammond finally took him down, but the damage was done. Maya keyed her radio. Cease fire. Scenario complete. Hammond, Lawson, clear your weapons and exit the course. Debrief in 5 minutes. She met them outside the kill house. Lawson was rubbing his shoulder where the simunition had hit. Hammond was reloading his magazines. Casual, like nothing had happened. Walk me through it, Maya said. Through what? Hammond asked. Your decision to shoot through a civilian to engage the threat. I didn't shoot through anyone. I took a clear shot. The role player you shot was unarmed and directly in your line of fire. That's a civilian casualty. Hammond shrugged. In a real scenario, that civilian wouldn't have been standing there. They would have moved, gotten down, done something. The role player just stood there like an idiot. The role player stood there because civilians freeze, because they're scared, because they don't have your training or your experience, and it's your job to account for that, not to shoot through them. I made a tactical decision. Threat was armed and active. I neutralized it. Mission complete. You killed a civilian, Maya said. Her voice was still calm, still level, but there was steel underneath now. In a real operation, that would end your career. Court-martial, prison time, international incident. You don't get to shrug that off. Well, good thing it wasn't a real operation then, Hammond said. The casual dismissal, the complete lack of concern, that's when Maya knew this wasn't just arrogance anymore. This was something else, something darker. You're off live fire rotation, she said, until you can demonstrate better judgment under pressure. Hammond's jaw clenched. You're benching me. I'm protecting you from yourself and protecting the program from liability. This is because of the hostage scenario, isn't it? You've had it out for me since I questioned your experience. This is because you just shot a civilian and showed zero remorse. That's not a personality conflict, Hammond. That's a character flaw. He took a step closer, not quite threatening, but close, using his size, his presence, trying to intimidate her. My character is fine, Senior Chief. Maybe the problem is your standards. My standards are the same for everyone. You're just the only one who keeps failing to meet them. Lawson put a hand on Hammond's shoulder. Come on, man, let's go. Hammond shook him off. No, I'm tired of this. Tired of walking on eggshells around someone who's never even seen combat, who got her position through quotas and politics instead of merit. There it was, finally, the accusation he'd been dancing around for weeks, the one that had been poisoning his attitude and infecting his judgment. Maya didn't flinch. You're dismissed, Sergeant. Report to Master Chief Torres for remedial training. We'll discuss your status in the program after that. You can't kick me out. I can and I will, if you don't give me a reason not to. She walked away, didn't wait for his response, didn't give him the confrontation he was looking for. Behind her, she heard Lawson again. Dude, you need to chill. She's going to drop you from the course. Let her try, Hammond said. I'll file a complaint, discrimination, hostile work environment. Let's see how that plays out for her precious career. Maya kept walking. Her hands were steady. Her breathing was controlled. But inside, something cold and hard was settling into place. She tried patience. She tried professionalism. She tried giving him every opportunity to correct course. But Hammond didn't want to learn. He wanted to fight. Wanted to prove that he was right and she was wrong and the whole system was rigged against him. Fine, if that's what he wanted, she'd give it to him. But on her terms. That evening, Maya met with Torres and the other senior instructors. They reviewed Hammond's file, his performance metrics, his disciplinary incidents. The pattern was clear: escalating problems, declining judgment, inability to accept feedback. He's done, Torres said. One more incident and we pull him, agreed. The others nodded, but Maya held up a hand. Not yet. They looked at her, confused. If we drop him now, he becomes a martyr, Maya explained. Files his complaints, gets his buddies to back him up, makes it about gender instead of performance. We need something indisputable, something he can't spin. Like what? Asked Lieutenant Commander Jackson, the tactical operations instructor. Like him failing on his own, spectacularly, in front of witnesses, in a situation where he can't blame anyone but himself. You're talking about the final evaluation, Torres said. Maya nodded. Solo scenario. No team, no backup, just him and the mission, pass or fail, black and white. If he succeeds, he earns his place. If he fails, he's out. No questions, no appeals. Jackson frowned. That's risky. Those solo evaluations are designed to be borderline impossible. You're setting him up to fail. I'm giving him exactly what he's been asking for, Maya corrected. A chance to prove himself without interference, without excuses. If he's as good as he thinks he is, he'll pass. If he's not, he won't. Either way, we'll have our answer. Torres studied her face. And if he does something stupid, gets hurt, or worse, then that's on him, not us. We've documented everything. We've given him multiple warnings. We've offered remedial training. At some point, people have to be responsible for their own choices. The room was quiet for a moment. All right, Torres finally said. Solo evaluation, 2 weeks from now. But Maya, if this goes sideways. It won't, I'll make sure of it. But even as she said it, she felt the weight of doubt. Not in her decision. That was sound. But in what Hammond might do when he realized he was being tested. When he felt the pressure. When his ego collided with reality. Men like Hammond didn't fail quietly. They thrashed. They lashed out. They looked for someone to blame. And Maya knew with absolute certainty that when Hammond failed, and he would fail, he'd come looking for her. She just had to make sure she was ready when he did. What do you do when you see the storm coming but can't stop it? Maya had asked herself that question 100 times. In Afghanistan, in Iraq, in places that didn't officially exist on any map. She'd seen the warning signs, the intelligence reports that didn't add up, the local patterns that felt wrong, the quiet before violence. And sometimes, no matter how prepared you were, no matter how many contingencies you planned, the storm hit anyway. All you could do was stand firm and try to minimize the damage. Hammond was a storm, and he was about to make landfall. The 2 weeks before the final evaluation were tense. Hammond had gone from subtly disrespectful to openly hostile. He showed up to training, did the minimum required, but the energy he brought was toxic, poisonous. It affected the other trainees, split the class into factions, those who bought into Hammond's narrative that Maya was biased and unfair, and those who saw him for what he was, a talented operator with a fatal character flaw. Davis had tried talking to him, one more time. Man, you need to dial it back, he'd said after a particularly contentious classroom session. You're making this worse than it needs to be. I'm not making anything worse, Hammond had replied. I'm just not pretending anymore, not bowing down to someone who doesn't deserve the position she's in. You don't know what she's done. Her record is classified, that means something. Yeah, it means she's hiding something. Davis shook his head. Or it means she's done things you'll never be cleared to know about, things that actually matter. Hammond had laughed. You sound like her little fanboy. Did she promise you a good evaluation if you kiss her ass? That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair, but I'm going to pass that evaluation, and then I'm going to file a formal complaint. Let the brass sort out whether she belongs here. Davis had given up after that, told Maya what Hammond was planning, not to be a snitch, but because he was worried. Worried Hammond was going to do something stupid, worried someone was going to get hurt. Maya had thanked him, assured him everything would be fine, but that night, alone in her apartment, she'd allowed herself a moment of doubt, a moment of wondering if she'd handled this wrong, if she'd let her own pride get in the way of what was best for the program. She'd called someone, the only person who really understood. Captain Alina Reyes, former team leader, current instructor at the Naval Special Warfare Center, and one of the few people who knew exactly what Maya had done to earn her position. "Tell me I'm not crazy," Maya had said. "You're not crazy," Alina had replied, "but you are stubborn, which you know. He's going to fail the evaluation, and then he's going to make my life hell." "Probably, but you've survived worse." "I have, but should I have to? Should this job really include managing the egos of men who can't handle being corrected by a woman?" Alina was quiet for a moment. "No, it shouldn't, but it does, and we both know why. The teams are getting better, slowly. But there's still guys like Hammond who see us as a threat instead of a resource. Your job isn't to fix that, it's to maintain standards, and from what you've told me, you've done that. Then why do I feel like I'm the one being evaluated?" "Because you are, every day, every decision, every interaction. That's the price we pay for being first, for opening doors. We don't get to be average. We don't get to make mistakes. We have to be twice as good to be considered half as competent." "That's exhausting." "It is, but it's also important, because every woman who comes after us, she gets to stand on what we built, gets to walk through doors we kicked open. So yeah, Hammond's going to fail, and yeah, he's going to complain, but the alternative is lowering standards, letting him pass to avoid conflict, and that doesn't help anyone." Maya had known Alina was right, but knowing and feeling were different things. The day of the final evaluation arrived. Solo scenario. Each trainee went through individually. No team, no backup, just them and the mission. The scenario changed slightly for each person, but the core elements remained. Infiltrate a hostile area, gather intelligence, extract without being detected. Think sniper mission meets intelligence gathering meets escape and evasion. It tested everything: technical skills, decision-making under pressure, emotional control. The pass rate was about 40%, which meant most people failed. But failure wasn't shameful if you gave it everything and learned from it. Failure with dignity was still growth. Hammond was scheduled for mid-afternoon. He'd been packing all morning, psyching himself up, talking to Lawson and Pierce, building himself into the kind of mental state where doubt wasn't allowed. When his name was called, he walked to the briefing room like he was walking into a title fight. Maya was there, Torres, Jackson, two other instructors, all observing, all evaluating. "Sergeant Hammond," Maya said, "your mission is as follows: you will infiltrate this compound." She pointed to a satellite image on the screen. "Gather photographic evidence of weapons cache locations, and extract without alerting the opposition force. You have 4 hours. Questions?" "No, Senior Chief." "Then you're dismissed. Good luck." Hammond stood, started to leave, then turned back. "Can I ask you something?" "What is it?" "Do you want me to fail?" The room went quiet. Maya held his gaze. "I want you to succeed, Hammond. I want every trainee in this program to succeed, but I want you to succeed because you earned it, not because we lowered the bar." "That's not what I asked." "It's the answer you're getting. Now go. Your clock starts in 5 minutes." He left, the door closed behind him. Torres leaned over. "Think he'll make it?" "No," Maya said quietly, "but I hope I'm wrong." She wasn't. Hammond started strong. Infiltration was clean. Movement was tactical. He avoided the roving patrols, stayed low, stayed quiet, got to the first observation point and started documenting the weapons cache. So far, so good. But then he got impatient. The scenario required 3 different cache locations. He'd found one. The second was on the far side of the compound. Instead of circling around the long way, safe but time-consuming, he decided to cut through the middle. Faster, more direct, but also more exposed. Halfway across the open courtyard, he was spotted. Opposition force converged. He had two choices: abort and extract, taking partial credit for the one cache he documented, or fight through, try to complete the mission despite being compromised. He chose to fight. Bad decision. Tactically sound in some scenarios, but this wasn't a direct action mission. This was intelligence gathering. Stealth was the priority. Once you were compromised, you extracted. You didn't escalate. Hammond escalated. He engaged the opposition force, took down two of them with simulated rounds, but there were more. And they had the advantage: position, numbers, familiarity with terrain. Within 3 minutes, Hammond was pinned down, surrounded, out of options. The evaluators called the scenario: mission failed. Hammond exited the course, face red, breathing hard, furious. Maya met him at the debrief room. "You were compromised," she said. "What's the protocol?" "Extract." "And what did you do?" "I tried to complete the mission." "By engaging a superior force in a scenario that specifically prohibits direct action. Why?" Hammond's jaw worked. "Because I wasn't going to quit." "You weren't quitting. You were adapting. There's a difference. You got one cache documented. That's partial credit. But by choosing to fight instead of extract, you turned a partial success into a complete failure." "I was trying to finish the mission." "No, you were trying to prove something, and it cost you." Hammond slammed his hand on the table. "This is bullshit. The scenario was designed to be impossible. The scenario was designed to test judgment. You had options. You chose poorly. That's on you." "You wanted me to fail," Hammond said. His voice was shaking now, anger and humiliation mixing into something volatile. "You've been setting me up since day one because you can't handle someone questioning you." Maya kept her voice level. "I've been evaluating you the same way I evaluate everyone. You're the one who made this personal. Because it is personal, you've got it out for me. Everyone sees it." Torres stepped forward. "Hammond, you need to." "Don't," Hammond cut him off. "Don't tell me to calm down. Don't tell me to be professional. I've been professional for 8 weeks, and it hasn't mattered because she decided I was the enemy." He turned back to Maya, took a step closer, too close. "You think you're better than me. You think because you've got rank and ribbons you can just disrespect people who actually earned their place." "Step back, Sergeant," Maya said quietly. "Or what? You going to take me down again? Show everyone how tough you are?" "I'm going to give you one more chance to walk away. Cool off. Think about what you're doing." "I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm calling you out. You're not qualified to teach this course. You're not qualified to evaluate me, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows it." Maya felt the shift in the room, the tension ratcheting up, Torres and Jackson moving slightly, positioning themselves, ready to intervene if this went physical. She kept her eyes on Hammond. "You failed the evaluation because you made poor choices under pressure. That's documented, witnessed, indisputable. You can file whatever complaints you want, but the facts don't change." "The facts," Hammond said, his voice dripping with contempt, "are that you're a quota hire who's never seen real combat, and you're taking it out on me because I had the guts to say it out loud." And there it was, the real accusation, the one he'd been building toward for weeks. Maya could feel everyone watching, waiting to see how she'd respond, if she'd defend herself, get angry, break composure. She did none of those things. "You're dismissed, Sergeant. Pack your gear. You're done with this program." Hammond laughed, harsh, bitter. "You can't kick me out." "I can, and I am. Failure to complete the final evaluation. Insubordination, conduct unbecoming, take your pick." "I'll appeal." "You can try. It won't change anything." Hammond stared at her, and in that moment Maya saw something shift in his eyes, the anger crystallizing into something colder, more dangerous. He wasn't just mad anymore. He was calculating, planning, looking for leverage. "This isn't over," he said quietly. "Yes, it is." He turned, walked to the door, paused with his hand on the handle. You know what your problem is, Senior Chief. You think being a woman makes you special, makes you entitled to respect you haven't earned, but I see through it, and eventually everyone else will too. Then he was gone. The door closed. The room exhaled. Tors looked at Maya. You okay? Fine. That was ugly. Could have been worse. Jackson shook his head. Could still get worse. That's not a man who accepts defeat gracefully. I know, Maya said, but he's out of the program, that's what matters. Except it wasn't, not really, because men like Hammond didn't just go away when you beat them. They found other ways to fight, other battlefields. And Maya knew, somewhere deep in her gut, that this fight was far from over. What's the cost of standing your ground? Not in the moment, not when adrenaline is pumping and principles feel crystal clear, but after, when the dust settles, when you're alone with the consequences, when you wonder if holding the line was worth what it took from you. Maya had been asking herself that question for 3 days, ever since Hammond left the program, ever since he'd made it clear this wasn't ending with a failed evaluation and a quiet exit. He'd filed a formal complaint, equal opportunity violation, discrimination based on gender, hostile work environment, all the keywords designed to trigger an investigation, to put Maya under a microscope, to make her defend not just her decisions but her entire career. She'd expected it, prepared for it, but knowing it was coming didn't make it easier. The investigation started immediately. Inspector General's office. They interviewed everyone, the other instructors, the trainees. Hammond's buddies backed his story, said they'd witnessed bias, unfair treatment, a pattern of targeting male students who questioned her authority. Most of the class told a different story, said Hammond had been the problem from day one, arrogant, insubordinate, dangerous, but a few stayed quiet, didn't want to get involved, didn't want to choose sides. Davis testified in Maya's defense, gave detailed accounts of Hammond's behavior, the disrespect, the refusal to learn, the civilian casualty in the kill house. The evaluators backed her up too, said her standards were consistent, fair, professional. But mud sticks, even when you're innocent. Even when the investigation clears you, which it eventually would, the accusation alone does damage. People remember the scandal, forget the exoneration. Maya sat in her apartment that night, lights off, just her and the silence. She thought about calling Alina again. But what would she say? That she was tired, that she was angry, that part of her wondered if it was worth it anymore. She didn't make the call. Instead, she sat there, in the dark, and let herself feel everything she'd been pushing down for weeks. The frustration, the exhaustion, the loneliness of being the only woman in a room full of men who saw her as either a threat or a token. Her phone buzzed, text message, unknown number. You think you won, you didn't, watch your back. Maya stared at the screen. She should report it, document it, but what good would that do? Hammond would deny sending it, claim someone else was harassing her, turn himself into the victim again. She deleted the message, set down the phone, went to bed. But she didn't sleep. The next morning she showed up early, like always, because routine was armor, consistency was strength. If she let Hammond's campaign rattle her, if she changed her behavior, then he'd won even if he lost the formal battle. Tors was waiting in her office. We need to talk, he said. Maya closed the door. What's wrong? Hammond's been running his mouth, off base, at bars where military guys hang out, telling anyone who'll listen that you're a fraud, that your record is fabricated, that you slept your way into your position. Maya felt something cold settle in her chest. That's defamation. Technically, yes, but proving it is a nightmare, and responding to it makes you look defensive. It's a no-win situation. So what do I do? Tors sighed. Honestly, nothing. Let the investigation play out. Let your record speak for itself. Don't engage with his nonsense. And if people believe him, then they're idiots who weren't going to respect you anyway. The people who matter, the ones who actually know you and have seen your work, they know the truth. Maya wanted to believe that, wanted to think competence and professionalism were enough, but she'd been in the military long enough to know better. Perception mattered, reputation mattered, and once someone planted doubt, it grew like weeds. Master Chief, can I ask you something? Anything. Was I wrong about Hammond? Should I have handled it differently? Torres was quiet for a moment, then he leaned forward. You want the truth? Always. No, you weren't wrong. Hammond needed to be dropped. His judgment was compromised. His attitude was toxic. He was a liability, but he paused. You could have let someone else do it. Could have let me handle the final evaluation. Distance yourself from the decision. Make it less personal. That would have been the safer play. It would have, but it also would have been the wrong one, because then Hammond wins differently. Gets to say that you couldn't handle the pressure, that you needed a man to clean up your mess. So yeah, you took the harder path, and yeah, it's costing you right now, but in the long run it was the right call. Maya nodded slowly. Doesn't feel right at the moment. Never does. Being principled is uncomfortable. That's how you know it matters. The investigation took 2 weeks. 2 weeks of interviews and reviews and scrutiny. 2 weeks of walking through the training compound feeling eyes on her. Whispers following. Speculation about what the investigation would find. Some of the trainees were supportive. Davis, Rodriguez, a handful of others. They went out of their way to show respect, to make it clear they had her back. But others were distant, uncertain, waiting to see which way the wind blew before committing. And then there were Hammond's guys, Lawson and Pierce. They'd been dropped from the program along with Hammond, guilt by association, or maybe just genuine performance issues that had been masked by Hammond's more obvious problems. They didn't go quietly. Lawson especially. He started posting on social media, vague statements about political correctness destroying the teams and diversity initiatives lowering standards. Never nomming Maya directly, but everyone knew who he was talking about. Pierce was smarter, quieter, but Maya heard through the grapevine that he was working connections, trying to get reassigned, trying to salvage his career. Hammond just disappeared. Nobody knew where he'd gone, what he was doing, but his absence felt more ominous than his presence, like a predator circling just out of sight. The investigation concluded on a Friday. Maya was called to the commander's office. Captain Richard Kowalski, career SEAL, 30 years in the teams, old school but fair. She knocked, entered. Senior Chief Cross, have a seat. She sat spine straight, hands folded, professional. Kowalski opened a folder. I've reviewed the Inspector General's findings. I've read the testimonies. I've looked at the documentation, and I've made my decision. Maya waited. The complaint is unfounded. Your conduct throughout this training cycle was professional, consistent with regulations, and in line with the standards we expect from our instructors. Sergeant Hammond failed because of his own choices, not because of bias or discrimination. Relief flooded through her, but she kept her expression neutral. However, Kowalski continued, this situation has highlighted some concerns, not about you, about perception, about how easily accusations can undermine authority, and about the challenges you face as one of the few female instructors in this community. Sir, I don't want special treatment. Kowalski held up a hand. I'm not offering special treatment. I'm acknowledging reality. What Hammond did, the accusations, the campaign, the harassment, that's not unique to you. But it's harder for you because there's fewer examples of women in your position, less institutional understanding of how to handle these situations. He closed the folder. Here's what I'm offering. You continue teaching. Same position, same authority, but I'm also assigning you a mentor, someone senior, someone who's navigated these politics and come out the other side. Captain Alina Reyes has agreed to provide guidance. Maya blinked. Captain Reyes. You know her. We've spoken. Maya paused, she's exceptional. She is, and she's been where you are, faced similar challenges. She'll help you develop strategies for handling the next Hammond, because there will be a next one. Maya nodded. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. This job doesn't get easier. The scrutiny doesn't decrease. And there will always be people who think you don't belong. Your job is to prove them wrong, not by defending yourself, but by being so damn good at what you do that the results speak for themselves. He stood, extended his hand. Welcome to the hardest part of leadership, Senior Chief, when doing the right thing costs you, and you do it anyway. Maya shook his hand, left his office, walked back through the compound. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the training facilities. She thought about what Kowalski had said, about cost, about doing the right thing anyway. She thought about Hammond, about where he was, what he was planning. And she thought about the next class, the next group of young operators who needed to learn not just how to fight, but how to think, how to lead, how to be better than their worst impulses. That night Maya did call Alina. I heard, Alina said, congratulations. Doesn't feel like a victory. It's not, it's survival, which is sometimes the best we get. He's still out there, Hammond. I don't think he's done. Probably not. Men like that don't let go easy, but Maya, listen to me. You can't control what he does. You can only control how you respond. And you've already won the part that matters. You held your standards. You didn't compromise. That's the victory. Even if it costs me. Especially if it costs you. Because that's what separates professionals from pretenders. Professionals pay the price. And they do it without expecting applause. Maya was quiet for a moment. Then, will you really mentor me? If you'll have me. I'd be honored. Good. Then here's your first lesson. Stop waiting for Hammond to make his next move. Take back control. Do your job. Teach your classes. Build your reputation one student at a time. Let him stew in his anger while you focus on excellence. That's how you win in the long run. And in the short run. In the short run, you watch your back, document everything, and trust the people who have earned it. After the call, Maya felt something shift, not relief exactly, but resolve, clarity. Hammond might come back. The investigation might have cleared her, but the whispers would continue. The doubt would linger. But she'd survived worse. In places where the enemy didn't file paperwork, where the consequences were measured in blood instead of career damage. This was just another mission, another obstacle, another test of whether she had what it took to keep going when quitting would be easier. And Maya had never been the quitting type. She opened her laptop, started preparing for the next class, new lesson plans, updated scenarios, better ways to teach judgment alongside technical skills. Because that's what professionals did. They got knocked down and got back up. They faced criticism and kept improving. They paid the price and counted it worthwhile. The cost of standing your ground wasn't cheap, but the alternative, compromising, backing down, letting standards slide to avoid conflict, that cost was higher. Maya would pay her price, and she'd do it without regret. Because some things were worth fighting for, even when the fight never really ended. Can you ever really leave a fight behind? Maya learned the answer 6 months later, in a way she never expected, in a moment that proved everything Captain Kowalski had said about there always being a next Hammond. The new class, Bud S-356, was different, better. Word had spread about what happened with Hammond, about the investigation, about the standards. Some candidates self-selected out before even arriving, the ones who weren't willing to learn from a female instructor, the ones who thought the team should stay exactly as they'd always been. Good, Maya didn't want them anyway. The ones who showed up came ready to work. Respectful, hungry, professional. Davis had stayed on as an assistant instructor. His testimony during the investigation had marked him as someone with integrity, someone who cared more about doing right than being liked. Rodriguez had graduated, deployed, was already making a name for herself as a solid operator. She emailed Maya occasionally, updates, thanks, reminders that what Maya had done mattered. Things were good, stable, the kind of quiet that felt earned instead of borrowed. And then Hammond came back. Not to the training command. He couldn't. He'd been administratively separated, given a general discharge, not honorable but not dishonorable either. The kind of discharge that said, "We're done with you, but we're not going to ruin your life." He showed up at a bar near the base, place called Ravens, popular with SEALs, active duty and retired, the kind of place where war stories flowed as freely as the beer. Maya heard about it from Tors. "He's been there 3 nights this week," Tors said. "Drinking, talking, still running his mouth about you." "Is he threatening anyone?" "No, just talking. But Maya, the guy's not right. He's got that look. You know the one, like something inside him broke and he's just barely holding it together." Maya did know the look. She'd seen it on operators who came back from deployment different, who couldn't process what they'd experienced, who turned the anger inward or outward but never actually dealt with it. "Should I be worried?" "I don't know, but I wanted you to know, so you can be careful." Maya thanked him, went about her day, taught her classes, maintained her routine, but she kept her awareness sharp, paid attention to her surroundings, checked her rearview mirror more often. 3 days later, Hammond made his move. Maya was leaving the gym. Late evening. Most people had already gone home. She was carrying her bag to her car when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned. Hammond, 20 feet away, hands in his pockets, casual stance, but his eyes were intense, focused. "Senior Chief," he said, not quite mocking, but not respectful either. "Hammond, what do you want?" "Just to talk." "We don't have anything to talk about." He took a step closer. "I think we do. See, I've been thinking a lot about what happened, about how things went down, and I realized something." "What's that?" "You were right." Maya kept her expression neutral, but her mind was racing, assessing. This didn't feel like reconciliation. It felt like a setup. "About what?" she asked. "About me needing to learn judgment, about my ego getting in the way, about all of it." He took another step. "I was angry for a long time, blamed you, blamed the system, blamed everyone but myself. And now I see that I screwed up, made bad choices, let my pride turn me into someone I don't want to be." He paused. "I came here to apologize." Maya studied him, looking for the crack in the facade, because this didn't track. Hammond wasn't the apologizing type, and 6 months wasn't enough time for that kind of transformation. "I appreciate that," she said carefully, "but I'm not sure what you want from me." "Nothing, just wanted you to know I'm trying to be better, do better, and part of that is owning what I did wrong." He turned to leave, took a few steps, then stopped. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "What?" "Do you ever regret it, kicking me out? Wonder if you could have handled it differently?" And there it was, the real question. The one that revealed this wasn't about apology. It was about blame, about making her doubt, about planting seeds of guilt. "No," Maya said simply. "I don't regret it. You failed because you earned failure, and given the same situation, I'd make the same call." Hammond's jaw tightened, just for a second, then he smiled. That same all-teeth no-warmth smile from months ago. "That's what I thought you'd say. You know what your problem is, Senior Chief. You think you're always right, think you've got it all figured out, but you don't." "Hammond, I could have been great. I had the skills, the determination, everything the teams need. But you couldn't handle someone questioning you, so you found reasons to cut me. Convinced yourself it was about standards when really it was about ego. Maya kept her voice level. This conversation is over. You need to leave. Or what, you going to call security, file another complaint, add it to my already ruined record, he laughed. You already took everything from me. What else can you do? I didn't take anything from you. You gave it away. By making poor choices, by refusing to learn, by blaming everyone else instead of looking in the mirror. That's a nice story, but we both know the truth. You couldn't handle a man who saw through your act, so you destroyed him, simple as that. Maya felt her phone in her pocket, thought about calling Tors or base security, but she didn't want to escalate, didn't want to give Hammond the confrontation he was clearly looking for. I'm leaving, she said. Don't contact me again. She turned toward her car, heard him move behind her, fast, closing distance. She spun, dropped her bag, got her hands up. Hammond stopped just out of range. His fists were clenched, his whole body tense. For a moment they stood there, two trained fighters, one looking for a fight, one trying to avoid it. You scared? He asked. No, but you should be, because whatever you're thinking about doing, it ends with you in jail. Assault on a federal employee. Battery. They'll add years to any sentence just because you're military. Maybe it's worth it. It's not. You're angry, I get it. But throwing your life away to prove a point doesn't make you right. It makes you stupid. Something in her voice must have gotten through, or maybe he wasn't as far gone as he seemed, because Hammond took a step back, unclenched his fists. You don't get it, he said quietly. You took everything I worked for, everything I dreamed about, and you don't even care. I care that you're hurting, but I can't fix that for you, only you can. With what? I can't get back into the teams, can't get a decent job with my discharge status, can't even show my face around other operators without them knowing I'm the guy who got kicked out by a woman. Then build something new, find a different path, let go of what you lost and figure out what comes next. Easy for you to say, you didn't lose anything. I lose something every day, Maya said. Every time someone questions my qualifications, every time I have to work twice as hard to get half the respect, every time I choose this job over having a normal life. We all pay prices, Hammond. The question is whether you're paying for something worthwhile. Hammond stared at her, and for just a moment she saw past the anger, saw the broken kid underneath, the one who'd tied his entire identity to being a SEAL, who didn't know who he was without that trident. I'm sorry, she said, that you're in pain, that things didn't work out the way you wanted, but I can't change what happened, and neither can you. All we can do is move forward. Easy to say when you're the one still standing. Is it? You think I'm not carrying scars. You think I don't have nightmares about decisions I made, people I couldn't save, missions that went wrong. She paused. The difference between us isn't that I don't hurt, it's that I don't blame other people for my pain. Hammond looked at her for a long moment. Then he turned and walked away, slow, heavy, like every step cost him something. Maya watched him go, made sure he got in his car and drove off. Then she picked up her bag, got in her own car, locked the doors, and sat there, breathing, processing, letting the adrenaline fade. Her phone buzzed. Tors. You okay? Got an alert that Hammond was on base property. I'm fine, it's handled. You sure? Yeah, he's gone. Did he threaten you? No, just talked, angry, hurt, but not dangerous, not tonight anyway. I'm filing a report, restraining order if necessary. Do what you need to, but Tors, I think he's more broken than dangerous. He needs help, not punishment. That's generous, considering. It's realistic, considering. We chew up people in this business, train them to be weapons, then act surprised when they don't know how to be anything else. Hammond's a cautionary tale, not a villain. Maybe, but that doesn't mean you let your guard down. I won't, I promise. After the call, Maya drove home, thought about Hammond, about the look in his eyes, the pain underneath the anger. She thought about all the other Hammonds, the ones who washed out, the ones who couldn't adapt, the ones who peaked during Hell Week and spent the rest of their lives chasing that high. The military didn't prepare you for losing, for failing, for being told you weren't good enough. It prepared you to win, to push through, to never quit. And when quitting was forced on you, when failure wasn't an option but became reality anyway, a lot of people didn't know how to process it. That night Maya did something she hadn't done in months. She pulled out her old journals, the ones from deployment, from operations that still gave her nightmares. She read her own words, young, scared, trying to sound braver than she felt, making decisions that cost lives, saving others, learning that leadership wasn't about being perfect. It was about doing your best with imperfect information and living with the consequences. She'd lost teammates, good people, better than her in some ways, who didn't make it home because of bad luck, or bad timing, or bad intelligence, or 1,000 other factors nobody could control. She'd carried that guilt for years, still did sometimes. The survivor's burden, the question of why she lived when others didn't. But over time she'd learned something important. Guilt was only useful if it made you better, if it taught you, shaped you, made you more careful, more thoughtful, more aware of the weight of your choices. Guilt that just festered, that turned inward and became self-destruction, that was poison. Hammond was poisoning himself. And until he learned to process his failure differently, until he found a way to transform his pain into growth, he'd stay trapped. Maya couldn't save him from that. Nobody could. He had to choose it himself. But she could continue her own work, teaching the next generation, setting standards, showing that excellence wasn't about never failing. It was about failing with dignity, learning, adapting, becoming better through adversity. She closed the journal, put it away, made a decision. Tomorrow, she'd start a new initiative, bringing in former trainees who'd washed out but rebuilt their lives, who'd found success in other fields, who could show current students that failing one test didn't mean failing at life. Because the teams needed operators, but the world needed good people. And sometimes the best thing you could do for someone was show them there was life after disappointment. 3 weeks later, Davis knocked on her office door. "Senior Chief, got someone here to see you." "Who?" "Hammond." Maya tensed. "Is Tors with you?" "Yeah, and security's on standby. You want us to send him away?" Maya thought about it, weighed the risks, remembered the broken look in Hammond's eyes. "No, let him in, but stay close." Hammond entered. He looked different, cleaner, calmer, still carrying weight in his shoulders but holding himself differently. "Senior Chief, thank you for seeing me." "What do you want, Hammond?" "I wanted to apologize. For real this time. Not the half-assed version I gave you in the parking lot." "I'm listening." "I was wrong about everything, about blaming you, about thinking I was entitled to pass just because I worked hard, about letting my ego destroy my career." He paused. "I've been in therapy, working through some stuff, and I realize now that you were doing your job, a job nobody should have to do, which is holding people accountable when they don't want to be held accountable." Maya studied him, looking for the angle, the manipulation. She didn't find one. "I don't expect you to forgive me," Hammond continued, "or to trust me. I just wanted you to know that I get it now. You were right, and I'm sorry for making your life hell because I couldn't accept that." "What are you doing now?" Maya asked. "Working construction. It's honest work, pays the bills, and I've been volunteering, veteran support organizations, helping guys who wash out, who struggle with the transition, trying to turn my failure into something useful." "That's good, Hammond, really." "I also wanted to say, what you said that night in the parking lot, about building something new, finding a different path, that stuck with me. Took me a while to hear it, but I heard it eventually." He extended his hand. Maya looked at it, thought about everything that had happened, the complaints, the harassment, the confrontation. Then she thought about the man in front of her now, different, changed, doing the work. She shook his hand. "Good luck, Hammond, I mean that. Thank you, Senior Chief, for everything, even the hard parts, especially the hard parts." After he left, Tors came in. "You believe him?" "I think so. People can change, if they want it bad enough. And if he hasn't, then we deal with it. But I'd rather give him the benefit of the doubt and be wrong than assume the worst and miss a genuine transformation." Tors nodded. "You're a better person than me." "No, just someone who knows that nobody's beyond redemption, if they're willing to do the work." That night Maya stood in the training compound again. Early morning, fog rolling in, the obstacles waiting, a new class arriving soon. She thought about Hammond, about redemption, about the cost of holding standards and the price of second chances. She thought about all the young operators she'd train. Some would become legends, some would wash out, some would struggle and find their way back. Her job was to make it easy for them. It was to make them better, even when better meant failing, even when better meant learning hard lessons, even when better meant confronting their ego and coming out humbled. Sometimes dignity didn't speak loudly, didn't demand recognition, didn't need applause. Sometimes dignity was quiet, steady, consistent, showing up every day to do hard work that nobody thanked you for, holding the line when it was easier to let it slip, teaching truth even when lies were more comfortable. Maya Cross had been holding that line for 15 years, through deployments, through classified operations, through investigations and complaints and men who thought she didn't belong. And she'd keep holding it, because some things were worth fighting for, worth sacrificing for, worth paying the price for. Excellence was one of them, integrity was another, and the belief that the next generation deserved instructors who cared more about their success than about being liked. The sun broke through the fog, golden light spreading across the compound, a new day, a new class, a new chance to make a difference. Maya smiled, picked up her clipboard, and got ready to teach. Because that's what professionals did. They showed up, they did the work, they held the standard. And they did it without expecting applause. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts.